Welcome to another episode of Consumer Engagement in an Omni-Channel World. I'm Peter V.S. Bond, your co-host of the series. And as always, I'm joined by my friend and CPG industry luminary, Shri Rajagopalan. Shri, great to have you with us. How you doing today?
Been awesome, Peter. Thanks for asking. So after spending 25 years in CPG, Peter and I decided to start this series focused on the consumer, product, manufacturers, vendors, retailers, and engage in e-commerce. So I'm just happy to be here with you and having this discussion.
Great, great. Well, I should mention before we get started that it's easy for anyone watching this to find our content. All you have to do is look at the screen below here. One of the wonderful things about post-production is that we can add that in, but look for the hashtag Shri and PVSB on LinkedIn and YouTube in particular. That's where you'll find our content, and follow us there and you'll be able to catch future episodes of this. In addition to the video, we also supplement with a written LinkedIn article that'll be published shortly after the video goes live. And to remind everybody of how the format of this series works, each week one of us acts as the facilitator, asks questions of the other person, and interacts with them throughout the whole process. So understanding that, we can really start getting to the heart of the issue. Shri, I think this week we've got a particularly interesting topic. I know it's something that you and I have been bouncing around for a couple of weeks now. What do you think?
Yeah, this is one heck of a hot topic, one that I've personally in the past called the kryptonite of large CPG or scale brands. Kryptonite.
Yeah. Let's get to the heart of it. You know, many brands, big and small and in between, they're really striving to develop a direct-to-consumer strategy. And if you're going to do that, it's hard not to consider how Amazon will play in any such plan, given its incredible market share in the US. So before we get to the heart of our conversation, which we're calling the Amazon dilemma, let's take a step back and actually see if the premise of direct-to-consumer is correct. You know, D2C keeps coming up in the CPG industry as an essential need for manufacturers. Is that true, or do you think you can bust that myth?
So I call it a kryptonite of scale brands and large CPG for a reason, because it actually is. That word D2C actually sends a chill and fear in middle tier and large CPG brands. And there's a simple reason for that. It has to do with how the P&L is shaped and how majority of success in large CPG is driven by very good supply chain efficiency. So in 2020, the question is, do you really have a choice in 2020 to be in D2C or not? And to me, in 2020, you heard it here, you absolutely have no choice, regardless of the size of your brand. Why you do D2C, what's the purpose behind D2C is not going to be the same from brand to brand, depending on the size of your brand. Are you a digital native? What kind of penetration and how much % of the ACV you are in the United States, all that will matter. But in 2020, your best vehicle to engage with the consumer is D2C. And if you're not in D2C, you are responsible for my statement. It's the kryptonite of large CPGs. Please,
yeah, I'm with you there, Shri. I'm with you there. So if that's the case, then how have brands, in your estimate, been developing strategies for direct-to-consumer? And in what way has particularly Amazon storefront played into that strategy, both on the small side and the large side of the CPG ecosystem?
I think it's a very helpful question for executives at CPG companies and vendors to actually pay very close attention to. All of you have started your e-commerce journey somewhat, whether it's a large business, small business, and have obsessed for time over what is the dollar volume of a business, because you're comparing it to your other retail businesses like Walmart, etc. So the easiest one for you to get started in e-commerce is obviously Amazon, because Amazon brings a reasonable scale on day one, given their size and fortitude. But you've also done it because they work very well with your supply chain ecosystems, which are largely efficient and over-planned and over-optimized. I'm actually saying over-optimized, not just optimized, for delivering truckload quantities to a retail warehouse. And Amazon follows that formula like all other retailers down to the bone. So the most executives in CPG have treated Amazon as a proxy for their overall e-commerce
Yeah.
strategy. And in many cases, we'll even tell you that's a proxy D2C strategy for getting to the consumer. Now, I don't want to say ever that working with Amazon is a fallacy, because it's not. Working with Amazon is a pleasure, and I encourage every brand to be doing it in some capacity, because you have a win. It's a win-win for Amazon and you. But it is not a D2C strategy, because the data is obviously owned by Amazon, and you're not engaging with the consumer directly. You're working with a merchandiser just like you do in an in-store business model. And for that reason, it is not a D2C strategy. It's a great place to get started, but evolving to your own D2C strategy that you control is the way to go.
Yeah, I hear you on not owning the data and the concern. I come from a digital advertising background, and when I talk to CPGs, their biggest concern with working with platforms like Facebook was the lack of detailed data to fuel their targeting mechanism. So I understand that that's a concern. So as we think about Amazon being so important, let's talk about what everybody's talking about, which is this current pandemic. Because of that, do you think that the impact of the pandemic and brands' reliance on Amazon to a large port, or in some degrees entirely as their D2C strategy, has been largely good or largely bad?
So relying on Amazon, again, to start e-commerce, great idea, because it mirrors your supply chain, probably agrees best with your existing profit model, your P&L model, etc., things of that nature. So yes, you should start with an Amazon strategy. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. I actually encourage you to do it.
Yeah.
But let's play this out in real time, as Peter just asked right now. We're going through a pandemic. You're a non-essential item. Odds are the fulfillment warehouses of Amazon where your products were are now occupied with essential items. This is a good thing. What Amazon is doing is actually a good thing, in my humble opinion, because they want to be able to source and distribute essentials to those who need access to it, more than ones that are considered discretionary purchase. You're in the discretionary purchase game. Now you rely on Amazon for, unlike the traditional retailer, you rely on Amazon for much more than just selling product. Your digital shelf, which is your display, your merchandising shelf, whatever you called it in the previous world.
Mm-hmm.
And Amazon, because it has the lion's share of search results. Now, when you're classified out of stock, or your product cannot be supplied and therefore shown as out of stock, you just started killing equity for your brand, because everyone, oh yeah, everyone is going to Amazon to search for things now. And when they don't find it, what do you think they do? Your equity is getting lost. They go with someone who can be found on Google, DTC. And so you don't want to be that one that doesn't have that mechanism. So start with Amazon. You have to be able to defend your brand's turf to grow equity on your own platforms. And that's what your brand website is, AKA connect that to DTC. I'm not advocating every SKU, every price point, every line item be sold, but there's a role for D2C. But this pandemic is clearly glowing and showing us that not having some form of a website anchored, your own brand website anchored D2C is not the greatest of ideas.
Yeah, I think you really hit on it, Shri. I've heard a statistic that 70% of all product search starts at Amazon. And if your product isn't available there, and you don't have an alternative solution for people to find your product, particularly through traditional search and Google and other browsers, or pardon me, other search engines, you're in some big trouble. So if we understand that that's the case, from your standpoint, you know me, I love my lists. So why don't you give me the top 3 things that brands should do to avoid this Amazon dilemma of, if I'm not able to sell on Amazon, I can't sell anywhere. What should they be doing?
So let's aim to give Peter his list and the top 3 reasons what should they be doing. By the way, Peter, I feel brands should be doing this from day one they get into an e-commerce strategy. There was a time and place where you only worked Amazon. That was perfectly fine. You needed to learn. Being on Amazon is actually going to teach you a ton of stuff about you.
Sure.
Great place to get started. But if you want to win these days, it has to be much more holistic than that. So let's talk about item number 1. Fairly straightforward. Be holistic in your e-commerce strategy. That means you don't rely just on working on a pure play. You work across the ecosystem.
Okay.
What does that mean, work across the ecosystem? You work with your omni-channel partners where you already sell product in store. You already have great merchandising relationships. You have great value equations you're delivering for the consumer that you've developed over the course of probably a decade, if not longer, of partnerships, etc. Encourage them and be a leader for them too in their retail journey of moving to the digital world. Don't wait for the special call. Be a leader that can help your omni-channel partners get started, deeply engage in search, content, assortment with you, things of that nature. That's number one. And the message there, be omni-channel. Don't just be one retailer centric. Get into the omni-channel world. Second one is get serious about DTC. You know this is a pet peeve of mine with manufacturers. It's never too late. Ask, just go to your e-commerce team and ask a question. Do I have a DTC plan? Don't be embarrassed to ask the question. Are we in the DTC model today? And then research the brand website yourself, like a consumer. Buy a product and see if you're in the DTC game. How does the user experience feel? Is it very difficult to buy a product? Is it difficult to search and get results? What happens when you actually Google for a solution or a need state? Can your brand be found? Be the one that inspires D2C journey. And the third one is a very important one. Work with your partners in the e-commerce journey that you can be connected with through your e-commerce teams. Power Reviews is one such example. Do not hesitate to ask for help and brush up. You have a short window for the next 6, 8, 12 odd weeks until everything is shut down and your commute time is saved, which means you're getting back an average hour and a half, 2 hours. I include getting ready time in that commute time. Invest in brushing up and learning something new. The best place in CPG and retail, the best thing to learn now, e-commerce. Make it work for you like a champion.
I couldn't agree more, Sri. I'm spending an inordinate amount of my time every week connecting with our clients and offering them counsel on how they can up their e-commerce game. We have a big client of ours that their stores are closed. And so rather than just wallow and wait until their stores open, they said, we're going to devote all of our resources squarely on getting our e-commerce game into good shape. So I'm right with you there. So the next question I have is, there's one thing I've learned from you, Sri, is you've always got like 6 or 7 things going. So how in that light, or in that spirit, how does a CPG brand hedge its investments in direct to consumer?
Number one, don't be crazy like me and have 6 or 7 things going.
Fair enough.
Successful. What's the best way to hedge bets and get started in D2C, right? Number one, I want to tell you, if you're already in the D2C game, congratulations, because you have a massive leg up on the competition.
Yeah.
Well done, especially if you're a digital native brand. And if you're a digital native brand, what I'm about to tell you is irrelevant. This is about getting started. If you're not in the D2C game, start again, like we said, with your website. And you're not doing this because you want to compete with your scale retailers, whether it's Amazon e-commerce or whether it's Walmart in-store business, because the profit models are going to go nothing similar. They're going to look like, the business of reselling product via retailer passes the ecosystem of fulfillment to the retailer, whether Amazon or brick and mortar. When you're in D2C, you become the retailer yourself, and there are costs associated with that. And therefore, your P&L is not going to look the same. So the primary reason why I feel brands should be in the D2C business is I felt that in 2020, this year, NACDS, retail leadership, chief merchandising officers, SVP of merchants would have started bringing out the theory to vendors and manufacturers that if you want to showcase innovation, bring it into my store, tell me why I should bring it in, qualify it with data and a test, like the digital natives are doing before they go in. They're like taking a page out of the large brands playbook. They're doing it 100 little vendors, but clawing into the category. And this is why in many categories, all the growth is going to little digital native vendors who are now coming in store. So what I add, my advocacy here to brands is use D2C to test innovation, poll your consumers, test digital content, have some UGC, user generated content that you allow, test value models for the consumer, also known as pricing, line extensions, what sort of bundles that actually make sense before you bring it to an Amazon to actually sell via the reseller model. In 2020, this is non-negotiable. Be curious, please.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right
Yeah,
there
a
with
lot.
you. So let's say now I'm a brand and I've decided, okay, I got to do this direct to consumer. Does that mean that I need to go out and build a platform from scratch and have it be exactly attuned to every aspect of the CX? Or to a degree, can I build a direct to consumer experience on the cheap? And if I can, what does that need to include? What does it look like, I guess?
You know, the question you asked me, Peter, is very akin to a question, you know, the answer is actually one that most executives in CPG want to eagerly seek and understand, is this going to blow my P&L out the water? The answer to the question is your P&L is going to change. If you try to do it all and acquire new expertise, of course, you're buying into expertise, it comes at a cost. But think about the advertising model. Why do you go to an agency and actually pay agency fees for them to buy your media for you? Because they have the skill set, they have relationships with media companies that actually execute advertising in media, and
Mhm.
you get the benefits of scale. Similarly, there are certain areas in D2C that you may or may not actually have the expertise, such as packaging design, pallet deconstruction, optimizing packaging specifically for USPS and UPS based on weight and size configurations, customer service journeys of handling large volumes of call centers, what to do with returns when they come back. Do you destroy them? Dealing with hazmat transportation, very different to a consumer versus a truckload because it's one item at a time. And then thorough mastery of SEO based on digital content. So my advocacy is always going to be, if you're getting into the D2C game, to experiment and do test your innovations, things of that nature, do it with experts in this area. There are so many third-party logistics provider in this space who are experts and have optimized the heck out of the space. There's no reason not to own them, but there's one area I plead to you to never let go, and that is ownership of your marketing experience, the commercial
Mm.
experience. Sell and market yourself, but use the experts for the transportation, logistics, fulfillment, supply chain, things of that nature. That's the best way for you, for this to be favorable to your P&L, best way for you to learn and scale over time. And there will come a time when maybe you want to encourage bringing it in-house, but always start with experts.
That's I couldn't agree more, Shri. You know what you don't know what you don't know, and there are people out there, if they know how to do things and they can do it efficiently, you don't need to reinvent the wheel for all
Absolutely.
aspects. But I agree, they need to
Absolutely.
control their marketing component of their customer experience. So should a brand then significantly prioritize its own direct to consumer investment versus, say, investing in other e-retailer opportunities? I mean, Amazon being one of them, and other channels or other retailers within their specific channel. Should D2C investment come ahead of all the others?
This is a wicked one, Peter, because it's in the minds of a lot of people. And we've also got a CPG ecosystem where marketing and selling organizations aren't often collaborating the way they be to drive brand equity. You know, people see it as broken responsibilities in marketing, sending the point of sales version and coupons and discounts and price promo offers and things of that nature. So the way I look at it, Peter, is very straightforward. Your brand website is your flagship. How equity is communicated with the consumer. It's also the vehicle where you can engage with the consumer, get feedback, get ratings and reviews, and hey, who better expertise than you, Peter, and our reviews, right? So your brand website is what you should be focusing on big time for equity building, and D2C is merely an end goal at the end of the day. So absolutely use your brand website. You should prioritize this big time from a marketing perspective. And I don't compare this with other retailer ecosystems and websites, because this is your playground and that's the purpose. So you define a certain budget for it and you execute the playground to certain, on the playground, you go play to certain objectives. But absolutely prioritize your brand website. Don't think of it as a D2C website, but more as an equity building website. There's another good reason why. On retail websites, you play to a template. So you have limited space to actually be in that playground, and you're complying based on 50 different factors depending on the retailer. and you're limited in space and how much wording you can put out there and the message you want to communicate. So absolutely, a brand website should be prioritized for investment from a content perspective, for communicating with the consumer. Does that mean you don't engage with retailers? No. Omnichannel is the only way to be in 2020.
I think that to what you said, a brand should be using their site to display the maximum touch points of a consumer engagement. And to your point, in dealing with retailers that have their own ideas, they're ultimately going to pick and choose which of your content and experience pieces they choose to integrate into their experience.
Why wouldn't they? You know, it's their playground. They're allowed to make the rules.
And moreover, I'll tell you that in my discussions with retailers over the last year, increasingly, they're taking ownership of the experience. They don't want third-party JavaScript and other code on their product pages because that limits their choices. They want to maximize their choices. And so they'd rather use APIs to ingest content into a data store, do so from multiple different providers, and then ultimately choose what they want to display. So that doesn't allow any one of those players to monetize or restrict the amount of content and make decisions the retailers don't want. And that's ultimately good for the brands too, because they don't want some third-party provider making the decision for a retailer about what types of content do and don't reach those retail sites.
It goes back to a previous chapter, the one we put out about a week ago on brand trust and authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Retailers take control of their ecosystems. Authenticity is automatically going up.
So let's go out 3-5 years. What do you think are the winning elements for direct-to-consumer website?
So today, tomorrow, day after, yesterday, a decade ago, a century later, the single most important aspect of a website is always going to be user experience. If you haven't Google indexed via the search index when you're building the website, if you're not paying attention to that search index often and updating it based on key search terms that you're proud of and want to be part of. Also, not each search term is born equal. It's some search terms that are widely searched for expensive. You're never going to have the budget to be able to win those. But how do you affiliate yourself onto those? Should you be in the business of conquesting? So your user experience of how many clicks does it take to engage with the website, to find content, to read, to get education based on what you want to learn. These are all key anchors. Plus, if you're in the D2C, the game of D2C, also, how long does it take from landing on the website to actually making a transaction? How seamless is the process of logging in and executing a transaction? Do you take Apple Pay? Do you take PayPal? Things of that nature. I bucket all that into user experience. You also asked Peter, 3 to 5 years, what's going to matter? To me, there's one huge development in technology that's taking place at such a rapid scale that is silently flooding us. You know, it's the one that in layman's language, when you say something and you open up your Facebook and suddenly shows you an ad on what you just said, you're like, is it spying on me? And Peter, so many people say that word to me. So that's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence and robotics, I think, will be the game changers 3 to 5 years. It's not even going to take that long. COVID is going to change a lot of things, like 18 months from today. Shopping will be AI induced and AI anchored. And robotics will change how fulfillment is done and the cost of fulfillment, making e-commerce and D2C a much more viable proposition for everybody. Packaging, wrapping, shipping costs, fulfillment costs, everything is going to go through optimization with robotics. So AI and robotics.
Yeah, I will agree with you, particularly around AI, in that, you know, I came from a loyalty background, and I constantly dealt with issues of how do I use the data as an indicator, a propensity to serve up an experience to a consumer. And you're always running the risk of, you want the consumer to say, oh my God, I love this brand or this retailer because they know me, they know what I like. And there's a fine line between that and they're spying on me. I really am concerned about how much control they have over my data. And that was largely what drove GDPR.
So the interesting thing, Peter, Peter, I know you and I have discussed this for however long we've known each other, which is a while, IRI days. That's like ancient history at this point. But one of the things that comes to mind with me for data is retailers have always had the data. So even in the offline world, they know everything about you. The challenge they've had is the point of sale, which is the store, is disconnected from you as a human being when you're away from the store. And there's very few moments in the day when they can actually induce you to buy. So the data wasn't as powerful to them. In today's world, the point of sale sits in your pocket 16 out of 24 hours in a day. It's, I hate to say it, but it's going to the bathroom with you, and we know that because there's data to show that you're taking it to the bathroom with you. You're taking it for your walk. You're listening to something when you're jogging, when you're biking. It's with you 24/7. And I'm being generous when I say 16 hours of the day. So that the power of that data has quadrupled, 10x what it was, because the point of sale is just a few seconds away from the consumer. And that's why I feel AI, it's going to do overreach. There's no way around it, but it's going to be one of the single biggest phenomenons in retail shopping.
So I've built a wonderful D2C experience and I'm waiting for consumers to come visit. If I'm a consumer, why would I go to a single brand D2C site versus say a brand that's part of a much larger company that has a whole family, or take it to the where they're more likely to go historically has been a retail site which carries multiple brands, multiple categories. What's going to compel them to want to go to my brand, single brand site?
Break this into two pieces. If you're a large and established brand and there's great awareness, like you have 97% ACV distribution, you're in 40,000 stores in America, you have 10,000 reviews on Amazon, you're already well known as a brand and you shouldn't have to sweat this at all. But let's say you're a small brand, and why would they come to you? There's only one reason really they're going to come to you, and it's not what you think. It's not price. It's education, learning, which if you summarize what that is, it's engaging content. Engaging content drives to conversion, and engaging content is everything from the digital images that you show, your merchandise, your online merchandising that includes ratings and reviews in a big way is your engaging content. If you don't have that, they're not going to come to you. But if Google results, when they search, or when you're able to create the hook through Instagram and they look at you, if you've got engaging content, they're going to want to come to you and look at you no matter how big or small you are. But if you're a large brand, congratulations. They're going to come to you because you're you and you're always giving stuff away and you've always got offers and they have a reason to engage with you. And I think that's the big difference in the two between why they would want to come. But I also feel very strongly as a brand steward, if you're working on the CPG side, the manufacturer side, you want to take this rare moment in time because shopping is now slowly and steadily shifting digital. For the first time in history, you have the opportunity to actually create virtual bundles. You have the opportunity to tease out what happens when you try to co-sell product A with product B, which may be subcategories, which is almost impossible to execute in store without driving the customer, the shopper crazy, choosing different aisles in the store. I feel it's your responsibility to actually not be a single brand steward in your company. You may be working just on one brand within your company, but the stock ticker and the name of your company is not just a brand unless you're a single brand company. So you should be a brand steward that actually looks cross category, cross brand, and actually champion the equity of your company cross brand and not just be a single brand person.
Yeah, absolutely. You're responsible for ensuring that your entire portfolio is successful. And if we think about partnerships in business,
portfolio,
different capabilities, whatever, let's not forget that our brands can be thought of as partnerships that increase and improve the customer experience. I want to close with a final question, which is, and this is actually going to the consumer side of things. How do you see consumers have been reacting to this essential item only shipping policy for Amazon? Do you think that brand trust has been damaged by this? Like, do they extend the fact that they can't find the product at Amazon and lay that on the doorstep of the brand, or is Amazon losing equity over? What's kind of the balance between that?
this is actually, Peter, top of mind as I've been speaking to friends, associates, and peers in the industry, right? When their product is seen as non-available, Are they losing equity big time? Is the trust with our brand never going to come back? Because at the end of the day, the customer will feel a certain brand and a SKU is out of stock. Number one, let's break this up into two short pieces. Amazon. Will the customer actually be irritated with Amazon, and will Amazon lose brand equity? No chance. Absolutely not. People come to Amazon for two reasons. It's convenience and value.
Yeah.
And Amazon will continue to give you convenience and value today, tomorrow, day after. Because if you've ever seen the famous Jeff Bezos napkin, it's right. You customer are right at the center. That's the anchor, the hub and spoke system for Amazon. So then,
Yeah.
not going to lose any equity over this whatsoever. Not even a little blip. And convenience and value being the anchors. Now, if they were to move away from convenience and value, good shot. That goes away. So what I'm going to say, Peter, is this is more emotional than the reality. If you look at the data, yes, there was a lot of rants and raves about this. It's fair to be concerned, but it's more emotional. Analytically, if you start digging deep into the data, life's going to be fine.
Well, Sri, thank you. This has been a really insightful interaction. I hope that our viewers learned something from this as they start to think about direct to consumer and the implications that Amazon has on those strategy. I want to thank you for joining us today and to help us think through this entire process. What I want to say to our viewers again is follow us on social media, particularly LinkedIn and YouTube at hashtag Shri and PVSB. And next week, we'll be back with a new and exciting episode. It is going to be centered around how brands should be focused on optimizing the product page for consumer engagement, thinking about all the components of the product page. So that should be a really lively discussion. Shri, thanks again, and looking forward to seeing you next week.
Indeed, Peter, as always, thank you. Great to have you as a buddy in this journey.